We ready to get started?
I'm here for it.
Yeah?
Let's do it.
Chris, Zoe? All good? Sure. Okay. So should I introduce AEP? I guess maybe that's the question. Does anyone here not know what AEP is? No. American Exchange Project. I had a little introduction ready.
Wait, you asked what it is for us to answer?
I was kind of messing around with you guys. I was going to give an introduction, but all of you know our program pretty well. So, Alana, do you mind introducing the American Exchange Project for us?
Yes, the American Exchange Project was created by Mr. David McCullough III. And as it's progressed, he's had these amazing members join him in the progression of the project. It's meant to bring us back together as a country. And yes, he had a dream to stop allowing us to be 50 and come into one, so we could truly be what this country was meant for, united. So
awesome, thank you. Does anyone have anything they'd like to add on to what the American Exchange Project is?
We can also explain like what that actually like kind of manifests in practically, because we've been like people from all over, kids in high schools from all over the country join Zoom meetings with different topics or not, just to kind of chat and debate and stuff and make friends. And then it culminates in a trip, an exchange trip.
Could each one of you go around and just introduce yourself? And why don't you tell us just a brief story about where you're from, so about your town, whether that's the one that you're living in right now or the town that is yours here. Rachel, will you start?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm trying to think of like just a good story from my town. Okay, so my name is Rachel. I guess y'all can see that. I'm 17. I've lived here in Kilgore, which is in East Texas, for about 4 or 5 years. And the first story that really comes to mind is, so Texas and most of the South was hit with a blizzard, obviously, this year. And it was really bad. Like, it was horrible. Like our roads were just like frozen over with like inches of ice, and like there was just so much more snow than we could ever have imagined us to have. But the thing that like impressed me the most about my town was that like that didn't stop anybody from having any sort of Southern hospitality. And like Southern hospitality is like such a stereotypical thing, but that storm really just like showed me like, oh wow, like these people are not going to stop loving their community no matter how much weather is thrown in their faces. I don't know, there was just people, like anybody with 4-wheel drive, anybody with stupid big tires was just driving around, taking people food, checking on people's houses, and just making sure that everybody in the community was okay. And I will never forget that about Kilgore. So yeah.
Rachel, could you call on someone?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Jillian.
That was such a sweet story. I was just gonna talk about, so I live in Bedford, Massachusetts. It's a suburb, probably 15 or so miles northwest of Boston. And there's really not a lot to do here. There's not like a real center of town where things for like teenagers to do and stuff. But there is a military base in my town. And because of that, there was some kind of like weird Cold War stuff that's here. There's an abandoned like weapons development like space or like complex that is like now abandoned because of like radiation and stuff. And there's also a Harvard testing lab deep in the woods where apparently they have an emu. And I've heard firsthand from several people that they've seen the emu, although I have not myself. Alana, do you want to tell your story?
no problem. So my name is Alana Ashworth. I'm 17. I'm a rising senior. I attend Katy High School. So I had lived in Lake Charles, Louisiana, which is Southwest Louisiana. For what happened, the story I'm going to bring up was like pretty traumatic. It was August 27th, the day before the first day of school, I was pretty excited. You know, we had COVID going on, but, you know, in Louisiana, it was handled, it was a little lax. So I was still excited to start school. And we were told to evacuate from this hurricane. It literally came out of nowhere. So we were like, okay, you know, whatever, like we're just gonna have a generator. It's gonna be fine. Maybe the power's gonna be out for a little bit, but either way, we can get back to normal. Well, we evacuated to Houston, Texas. There was so many people who evacuated Houston, Texas, that there was actually like mass traffic. Like everybody was delayed 2 hours, and it was crazy. We made national news and everything. But basically, later that night, the next day, we found out that like we lost everything. There was a tree that fell directly on our house, so it was gonna need to be gutted. It was just very shocking because you don't ever expect to leave and not come back to anything. So I remember, Rachel said with the Southern Hospitality, they had Facebook pages on Snapchat. You know, even I seen some on TikTok. People were like, "Hey, we have boats. If you want us to check on your house, you know, if you're stranded." I remember when the evacuation came, my neighbors had a big old boat, and they were like going around, like, "Okay, who needs to get out? Like, we can place you in this hotel, place you in that hotel." So it was really watching everybody take care of everybody in a time where we were all hurt. Everybody was affected. Even if your house wasn't affected, you no longer had a city because everything was underwater. There was trees all over the road. So it affected everybody. And the way the city came together to attempt to build itself back up, regardless of FEMA, you know, people that were supposed to help who didn't really come in time, the amount of people who stuck together to do what had to be done for our city, it really showed me that it doesn't matter where you at, as long as you have your people. That's what matters, to stick together, you know, a unit coming together as one. So yeah, and then moving out to Katy, I stayed here. I got to see a different type of people. You know, like it's still the South, but it's a different type of South. It's like a controlled South, if that makes sense. So I don't know how to explain it, but it's been an amazing opportunity living here. But that would definitely be my story. Just watching my city overcome over 2 hurricanes. Because right after that hurricane came, what was it, like 2 weeks later? 2 weeks later, another hurricane came, which basically flooded out and redid what the other hurricane did. So watching my community get back on their feet and do whatever they have to do just to get things back right and not giving up. That would be my city story. Thank you.
Okay, so my name is Wumi and I just graduated high school. Ooh, thank God. So I will be a college freshman next school year. And I'm actually originally from Nigeria, but like I immigrated to the United States, lived in San Jose for a while, and right now I live in Palo Alto. I guess Palo Alto is kind of like divided into like the East Palo Alto and like this Palo Alto itself. So technically Palo Alto had like a history of like segregation, and so basically people of color weren't allowed to own houses in Palo Alto. So the only people who were people of color that actually lived in Palo Alto in like the 19 whatever, they were white people, Caucasians, and like the only people of color that actually allowed to leave were either slaves or people who was like or employees of like white people basically. So they couldn't own a home, but like it could be given to them by their masters or whatever it's called, or employers. So that way it was like Palo Alto is actually still is a very predominantly white neighborhood, but when them like Stanford and in like Facebook and other like big industries came here, we got gentrified, and a lot more, I guess I could say, people of color came in, but it wasn't a lot. And also like because of like the increase of like housing, and there's also like the Bay Area housing crisis, it's also pushing out as much people as actually bringing in, so there isn't much change in like the demographic of like people of color and or like the diversity in Palo Alto. So yeah, Palo Alto is a pretty I guess we could say we try to be very accepting and all, but at the same time, Palo Alto does have some of its issues. I mean, most of the issues is like the lack of diversity, but I would say that there's also like, structural racism, but a lot of like Palo Altans are pretty, I guess I could say, um, I guess I can say they are open to like the issue, and like they are like in getting themselves involved and trying to like make a change, but like it's kind of hard. But yeah, that's all I have to say about Palo Alto.
Thanks, Wumi. Thanks, everyone. That was great. We're going to get started on some questions. So we can do this. We can jump around, or somebody can just start us off. So first question. So as you all know, AEP right now has been a virtual program. So we come together on Zoom, have conversations. Do you all think that this is an effective strategy to bring young people together from all over? And then how do you think that travel will build on that experience? So what you're doing this summer?
So to begin with, I think the virtual concept was amazing and just right because, to start it, like I remember we were talking about having like an AEP club back whenever I was attending Sam Houston High School, and we're gonna be like, okay, like we're gonna have these meetings and come in this time, and it was like that almost like got completely eliminated because the four of us that did go to Sam Houston High School all had stuff to do, whether it was sports or their own clubs or other clubs. Like it wasn't as flexible, rather than getting on a call, putting it in my AirPod, and then doing whatever I have to do. It's a lot more convenient. And even before COVID, just being busy in school, especially being a junior or senior, it's more your harder high school, more your harder years in your high school career. So I thought that was very effective. And as for travel, I feel like it's just going to make the bond between the friendship stronger. Because, like, for example, me and Wumi, also Jillian, but me and Wumi have been friends long. Oh, Rachel too. I don't want to say I'm not friends with you, but we're all like cool with each other. And me and Wumi have been like friends for like some months now. I want to say like since November, maybe earlier, because she sent me a birthday gift. So like we've been very good friends for a long time. And me being able to actually go see her lets it set in that it's like, okay, this is reality. Like I really met this girl from Palo Alto. I didn't even know Palo Alto was like a city before I met her. I met this girl from Palo Alto. She's my legitimate friend and I can hug her. You know what I'm saying? Like we can go have a great time together. I can show her how to slap mosquitoes off her leg and how to make pants into shorts and everything. So I feel like it just makes it more personal when you involve the travel. But as for like the beginners and people who are getting involved, it gives a comfortable setting with it being virtual, because it's like, you're not just in random people's face, and it gives more of a choice, not less of a I have to, but more of a do I want to, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think the virtual part was like really like, especially for the time I joined in November, December, which was still very much like social distancing is like a thing you have to do. And I think it was like, it was also kind of interesting because you're getting to know people, like we kind of talked about this a little bit, but getting to know people like without context, like not only without like, there's kind of the negatives where you're not hearing like someone laugh all the time if they're on mute, or you're not hearing someone like make little like noises and body language things. But also in terms of the mission of AEP and kind of trying to make connections across different cultures, it's kind of like you're getting to know the person without any of the other like cultural and social and class, context. Like I can't like see what anyone else is really wearing right now. I can't see like what car Alana's driving in. And I think that like really allows us to like get to know people for who they are. But I think that, at least for me, I feel like I can't really feel like I've made a friend completely without having ever like seen them or like kind of read their energy in person. That like sounds kind of dumb, but I think it'll just like kind of solidify I think it'll be a much quicker process of making friends with people in person than over Zoom over a course of months.
Yeah, honestly, I do agree with what both Alana and Julian said. I also feel like over Zoom, it is kind of pretty easy to misjudge a person's character. I feel like if you actually haven't met them in person, you wouldn't really know. Because like, I mean, there's someone I met here. I believe you all know Veronica, and like, she's really cool, and like she also has this like bougie kind of like attitude, I guess I could say. And like it wasn't until like I got her number and like we really talked that was like, oh wow, she's actually like a lot cooler than just like being like that bougie rich girl. Like like it wasn't just about that. Like I feel like without actually meeting someone in person, you won't really get to like know the person well enough. But like the Zoom calls definitely help, because I mean we met like almost every day, not almost every day, but like most days of the week. And since we had so many of them, you could literally go to whichever one you wanted. And it was like very flexible. And like even with school and everything, you could just go there and just like hang out. It should be like your way of like your own escape, or like your own like me time where you can just like talk with friends and like have fun, but also know them, like, and like get to know them and just talk about very bizarre to like very fun and amazing stuff. And yeah.
So I have a follow-up question, Wumi, if you don't mind, and to everyone. So I'm wondering, from your experience on the Hangouts, and then just this question of whether or not you can build a real friendship with someone without meeting them in person. Do you think that understanding where a person's from, or who their parents are, or who their siblings are, do you think that's less important because we can be connected kind of with the phone all the time? Or do you think it's just as important as it always has been?
I believe that, like, honestly, I feel like your environment kind of contributes to like the kind of person you end up being. So like having to understand that would definitely go a long way in actually getting to know the person. So I mean, I can't really fully say I know a person until like I can see like the type of people they hang out with, or the type of like things they do, or how they react to certain situations and stuff like that. And like I feel like if you don't meet the person, I mean, if you don't meet the person in person, or like go and see that for yourself, then you're not fully, you can't say you fully know the person like that. I mean, you do know the person to a certain extent, just not, it's not just as deep as actually going to where the person lives, or like hanging out a few times and seeing like them like real in person. I mean, we're just like all squares in like in a bigger square. Honestly, it's I feel like also everyone kind of has, seems like it's kind of a group call. Everyone has to be like, oh, I agree with you. I might not agree with you, but like, I mean, I guess like I kind of do see your point. So I'm like, okay, I guess I would just go along with it. But like, if it's just like, you and a person, or you and like a few people, and you're like, and you can see like, like you can see the person's body language. You're like, oh, I agree with you. I guess it's whatever. But like, if it's like, oh, I agree with you, I guess it's whatever. Over the Zoom, I can't see your body language. I can't see what you really think. I mean, if I'm in person, I can be like, okay, so maybe she doesn't fully agree with you. I guess we could just like, turn it around and talk more about it or something like that. But yeah, I feel like you really don't fully know a person until you actually really do meet them.
And kind of going off of that, like, so I don't know, someone told me once that if I showed them my friends, they could show me my future. And essentially what they mean by that is just like, the people that I spend the most time with, I am pretty much just a weird collaboration of everything that they are. And so obviously like Wumi and Jillian and Alana, they can get to know me, but they don't know where, like, I don't know, they can get to know different personality traits of mine, but they don't know specifically where those things come from. And so getting to know like my hometown and my family, that'll show them like, I don't know, that doesn't negate the pieces of me that they know, but that'll show them like kind of a different side of it. And so Wumi and Alana, they like obviously like have a great friendship, but when they meet in person, that is just going to mean so much more to them because they'll be able to see like, oh, this is why she does that. So yeah.
And so Wumi and Alana, since we're kind of focusing on you two, the two of you are going to meet up in Lake Charles. Is that right, Wumi?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. It's interesting also, I mean, something that's kind of fun this year for you guys is that, you know, either you're going to meet up with this group of people that you've met over the last few months, you're going to meet up with them in your hometown or their hometown. And I wonder also how that'll sort of color the different experiences that you have, you know, where that encounter first happens. Anyways, yeah. Lydia, do you want to move on to another question?
Yes. Sorry, I'm pulling them up. Okay, so we've talked about individual relationships, online versus meeting each other. And I want to go back into specific places for a minute. So I would love to hear, I guess we can divide between the South and the two coasts. So we'll go first with either Rachel or Alana. Do you have any stories from your hometown that you know are going to be different or that would kind of surprise your friends from California and Massachusetts?
I know before, like, this isn't really like a story, but it's a thing that we've talked about like multiple times on the different calls, but it's definitely the Confederate flag. That's something that it's not flown as often, but like whenever I was younger, it was flown every now and then. And I remember when we were talking about it, the people like who lived in Wellesley, they're like, oh my gosh, like, what did you do? Like, and you know, it was just like all the medial stereotypes they were like immediately applying to like what I told them. And I was like, people are gonna believe what they believe, but at the end of the day, it's not my job to walk up to that person and say, hey ma'am, hey sir, take that Confederate flag down now. Because one, that's risking my safety. And two, the country was built on having different beliefs. You can't expect everybody to be morally correct or morally right or wrong. So when I told them that, they just kind of like sat back and they were like, wow, like I didn't think about it like that. And they were saying that the only flags that are flown around up there is like the Pride flag and the Black Lives Matter flag. And I haven't seen either of those once in Lake Charles or Katy. So I didn't even know Black Lives Matter had a flag. I knew they had the fist. I still didn't see that publicly. But no, they were saying that like businesses had it and like people's homes had like the rainbow and the Black Lives Matter. And I had never seen that before. So that was just like something interesting that we were exchanging, because like I told them, you only see that if you go in like the country parts of like Lake Charles, you may see it, but like in the city itself, you don't see it a lot. The closest thing they have is Confederate statues, but even that got taken away by the hurricane. So, but yeah, that was just a little like opposite thing that we both had experienced and we were both like surprised by.
So mine is somewhat related. I love my hometown with every bit of me. However, there's always negative parts to everything. And so there at my high school, there was a friend of mine that had a mask that had like the Black Lives Matter fist on the mask. And she like wasn't allowed to wear it around the school, but there was like several different people that had various like Trump themed masks or just like different America themed masks, or people in our parking lot that just flew Trump signs on the backs of their trucks. And so it was kind of just, it was so frustrating to just, I don't know, like the things that they were allowing and the things that they were like, this is permissible and this is fine. But then like a Black Lives Matter mask, oh, that's not okay. And so I guess I wouldn't expect anybody from, I don't know, outside of, I don't know, well, okay, just because this is such a conservative area, I wouldn't expect anybody outside of that to think that that is a normal thing. Because I mean, it shouldn't be. So, yeah.
Does anyone have thoughts on that? On how you would feel, you know, when you get this summer, when you get down to the South this summer for someone who's coming from a coast and you see something like what Rachel just described, how do you think you would feel? What would you think?
I guess I could talk on that. I feel like we have had conversations about it. So I wouldn't be like surprised as I would have been if I just like, walked in there without actually having that knowledge. But I would be kind of pissed off, just like, and I might talk about it like a little with my friends, but I wouldn't like walk up to the person and say, "Oh, you're such a freaking listen" or whatever. I really wouldn't see anything, but it would like it's. I feel like it shouldn't be a thing, but I mean, I guess it is a thing. But I wouldn't make a big deal out of it as I would have made a big deal out of it in California.
Mhm.
For me, there are still like Trump supporters and conservatives and kind of like like people I would maybe stereotypically call like rednecks who live in my town even, and I think like it's kind of like it's not like in the like on the coasts and in the north and the liberal areas, like there's none of that. It's definitely less, but it's I don't know, it's yeah, I think that's kind of, yeah, that's what I have to say about that.
Mhm. I'm curious, Alana, if that's something that you feel like could happen at your high school in Lake Charles, or Rachel, or either of you, kind of down south. Why do you think that's the case in your high school? What do you think is the rationale behind that?
I think I've learned, a lot of people I go to school with, I've been going to school with since like kindergarten, or we went to elementary school together. Whether you're a grade, 2 grades above me, I normally know who you are because Lake Charles is, especially Moss Bluff. Like Moss Bluff is the part I live in. There's only one high school, 2 elementary schools, 1 middle school. So if I didn't know them in elementary school, I met them in middle school. And because that's what your environment is, everybody is a product of their environment. So like if I've seen, there's almost like all the football boys like to fly their Trump flags or the Confederate flags, but it's like, okay, Dylan likes to do this, but I've been going to school with Dylan since 2nd grade and he's been great to me. So it's like, I feel like because maybe his parents are that way, that's what he chooses to believe, but that's what he chooses to believe politically. But at the end of the day, that doesn't change how he treats me or how he like acts with me. Like everything's the exact same. He just got a few Trump flags on his truck. And like it kind of upsets me because it's like if you're gonna be like a Trump supporter, at least know why. A lot of them just do it because that's their environment and that's what their parents do and that's what their grandparents do. So they just listen. But at the end of the day, you can't control everybody. So you can do what you want to do. But as long as you approach me with respect and you're still the person that I knew, I have no problem with it, because there's nothing I can do about it.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, Kilgore kind of was just established on like the oil field, and so we have a lot of families that have a lot of old oil field money, and or maybe like you have old oil field money, or your parents or your dad's a coach or something, and like just we have a lot of just like football boys who just have been, I don't know how to say it, just kind of blatantly racist, but because they're important families in our town and because our town is so small, they can just get away with things. And so like obviously when situations like the mass situation happened, there is a lot of backlash, but there's rarely any serious punishment just because, I don't know, you're going to get away with things when your family's important.
Mm-hmm.
That's also something that like I kind of noticed. Like there was a girl at my school whose dad had like a construction company, so he was pretty big on like funding the school. And I remember she had an issue, like I think she said the N-word or something, and like she literally had like no nothing just because her dad was like funding school, and everybody kind of knows, it's just kind of, but like luckily it's gotten a lot better. I know like back in middle school, it's pretty bad, but it's like now it's like everything's starting to come together. And you have more people who are just like, okay, this isn't right. Like people know what the N-word means, so therefore it's not as easy to just get away with saying it. Like at least the kids, like most of the student population won't let you get away with it.
So now maybe this can bring us to another question. I mean, do you think that there are people, and Rachel, maybe this could be an example for the group that you were just talking about at your high school, or for adults as well. I mean, do you think that there are people who are not capable of understanding someone that has really different beliefs from theirs?
Only those who choose not to understand.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So I think the only time that you're not going to understand something is if you don't want to. And the only time that you're not going to be understood is if you're not trying to be understood. I think a lot of the time, well, I don't know. I think a lot of the time people enter discussions and debates trying to just kind of be heard and trying to just respond without actually trying to have the other party actually understand their point of view. And so I think for me and for a lot of the, not for me necessarily, but the way that I see it, like a lot of the families in my town, people are just really set in their ways. And so it's not that they're not capable of understanding, it's that they don't really feel like they need to. And so they're not going to try.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel like all of the thoughts just left my head. But I feel like lots of beliefs that people had, I think Alana was talking about this, are like things you were like brought up around, and it's, you kind of base your political beliefs on like the most basic way that you think that the world works. And if like that isn't challenged, like if you're not gonna like change your entire view on how the world works, which you're probably, I don't know, it's probably not something that you like seek out as well as like, I don't know, I feel like I've had a couple like aha moments over the course of my life where it's like the ideologies that I was raised around, or like some understandings of the world that I have are wrong, but like you don't really go looking for that. You kind of just are, someone teaches you or something kind of makes you realize. So I think that like if you have enough of those kind of like potential like domino push opportunities, then you can. But I think that if people are living in an area that's so entrenched, where there's like aren't like no one's gonna like challenge you on anything, and or nothing like, and nothing is there to like make you think that maybe not everything is the way that you thought it was for your entire life, then it's not gonna happen.
Mm-hmm.
I do have like a whole, like I have this like, okay, I guess I could just say what happened before I actually go back to my main point. So basically I had this whole argument with a person who was like a community of like, you know, he was a person of color, but he wasn't a member in the Black community, but he was a person of color. And we had this whole argument about how like the whole George Floyd death, and the fact that I thought that, well, the fact that he was a person of color, he would understand. But like apparently he didn't. He was like, oh well, the whole George Floyd death was like a scam, like he would have died without not with like, you know, the officer and stuff like that. And it really got me pissed. I mean, if he was from like, you know, Lake Charles, Louisiana, or wherever Alana and Rachel live, I would be like, okay, well, that's different. But he's from California, from Palo Alto. And Palo Alto is it's like you hardly see conservative politics, like it's like you hardly see them. And it was so baffling to me because like, I'm like, well, you live in a community where like, you know, a lot of people actually don't understand what's going on, and like, you know, they know what's wrong. But at the same time, you're also a person of color. So, I mean, you should have, you know, some sort of like empathy, and like you should understand like, you know, what it's like being a person of color. And it's just crazy as to how like he still wasn't getting it. Like he still had this, like there were so many problematic things that were said in that whole argument, because I really dragged that argument with him, because I was like, you're a person of color, you have to understand this. But I just realized that, I mean, sometimes it's not just about where you live or the type, like, you know, or like if you're a person of color, whatever. I guess some people are just, I don't know, some people are just like opinionated and they feel like they always have to be right. And so whatever beliefs they've held on to is not changing, no matter what evidence you bring to them.
So Wumi, let me ask you a question. If you were to travel this summer to, I know that you're going Lake Charles this summer, but if you were to travel anywhere to another town and you're staying with a host family and one of your host parents just really disagrees with you about something, and you think that either it's offensive or that maybe they didn't mean to say something that was hurtful, but they did, how would you go about addressing that?
To get myself from being kicked out of their house, I probably be like, well, I think this is pretty offensive, but I would kind of try to end the argument, like just stop it, be like, well, let's just agree to disagree. But honestly, I'm more of this person who tries to convince people. Honestly, I don't have a problem with arguing with someone 24/7. Like, I would sit down with you and show you my whole views and like, this is exactly why what you said was wrong. This is exactly why it was wrong. And these are the effects of what you said and like how it's gonna affect other people and stuff like that. I love doing that. I don't have a problem. But at the same time, I feel like sometimes there's just situations where you're just like, it's just situations that actually aren't worth, like, it's just not worth it. If a host family was to disagree with my own political views, that's fine. Everyone has, a right to have like a different opinion from me. But however, like if they say something offensive that I feel like is offensive, I would point that out, that this is what you said, and like it's really problematic for you to say that to me, or like, to anyone, in fact, because this is exactly how it's provided. I would try to, and even if they're still arguing with me, I would just like, make sure to pass my message across. Like, what you said was provided to me. I do not appreciate it. I do not like it. And I'm going to end it there.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, I can't, like, if they're not going to listen to me, or they feel like, or if they're opinionated, I can't change their mind. But you actually saying that, oh, this is where I stand, is what is important in situations like that.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. Because you're in that person's house, and you don't want to disrespect them at all, and also you have to keep in mind that you're a reflection of American Exchange Project. The last thing you want to do is have this parent withdraw their child from the project, and now it's like a whole lot, and it's now it's backlash on Mr. McCullough and Miss Lydia, Miss Liv. So that's the last thing you want to do. So if they were to ever say anything that was offensive, I would just politely change the subject. I wouldn't even point it out. I wouldn't let them know that I was offended. I'd probably like call my mom and tell her, because I feel like she knows how to handle all the situations. But I would just change the subject, like, Mr. So and so, what's your favorite color? Or Miss So and so, what's your favorite food? Or like, what do you like? Or I'm from Louisiana and we eat crawfish. You ever had crawfish before? Like, just switch it up. Like, I'm really good at that. Especially being in a conservative place, you can get uncomfortable real quick when you look like me. So I've learned how to switch it up real quick. So that's probably what I would do if I was put in the situation.
Alana, that's interesting. I mean, because you and a few of you guys have been a part of AEP for now a while, I would have anticipated that you were going to say that you would talk about it, but I wonder if there's such a difference in how you view having these sorts of conversations with young people, with your peers, and having these conversations with adults. Is that true?
Yes, most definitely. When you are an adult, I will not argue with an adult, because my parents, I just was not raised around that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't do that. Now, if it's like, say I go to Jillian's house and she talks about police brutality, and I think what she said was kind of offensive, I'll tell her, well, like, as an African American person, I've experienced this, that, and the third. So like, kind of what you said kind of like made me feel some type of way. And now this isn't like Jillian at all, but if Jillian gets upset and starts raising her voice, I'm gonna be like, okay, sis, you want to go do face mask? You want to go get some smoothies? You feel like iced coffee right now? Like, just de-escalate the situation. Mm-hmm. Especially when it's reflecting, because it's different if she just texts me on Snapchat, but because it's attached to AEP's name, whatever happens that goes wrong will not be on me. It will be on AEP. And that's the last thing I want to do to anybody. Like, so that's just my thing. Like, if I'm open to dialogue, if it's with like somebody my age, or, even if I meet Jillian's friends and like a political topic comes up and we discuss it, that's fine. But like, as soon as it escalates and it goes from a dialogue to an argument, I will no longer be participating.
Yeah. No, I completely see your point on if it were to get to an argument. I do think that what's interesting about the sort of foreign exchange or domestic exchange project in general is that usually the host families that you are going to come across are really interested in having cultural conversations, in learning more about where you all are from relative to where they're from and where you're visiting. So that doesn't mean that these people won't sometimes make comments that are unintentionally harmful, but I think that they are also open to learning more about you. And so sometimes, you know, that's part of the exchange, unfortunately, especially multi-generationally can also just kind of be like, all right, well, here's how I'm living through something, here's how I'm saying something. But I get that age difference and wanting to engage on the topic for sure, Alana. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, if the parent, God forbid, but if the parent was to say something blatantly racist, okay, now see, like, okay, I'll it's gonna have to be handled differently. But if they just make like a sly comment that you can tell wasn't intentionally to like be offensive, but I can take it as offensive, I'm just gonna, you know what I'm saying, just switch the subject so it's not repeated or so it isn't kept going further. But yeah, I highly doubt that will happen. I feel like we're past those times. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't know about, but like for me, I mean, especially like a lot of people of color, like you kind of have to have this like limit as to where you kind of have to control yourself. I think that is important. I mean, I wouldn't be rude, but I would be like, oh well, this is what you said, and this is how messed up it is, and this is why it is messed up. And I mean, I guess we can agree to disagree that you believe in this, I believe in this. That's fine. Like, but I think also having to like tell them that this is what they did wrong is also important. I don't know about anyone else, but like I feel like if you don't tell them what is wrong or like why you believe what they said is wrong, then they really don't know what they're doing. Like what they did was wrong or what they said was wrong. I mean, having to say in like a respectful way, not like, oh well, you said this and that was you said this, it's really wrong, it's you're being racist for that and it's messed up. That's different. Like what you said was actually pretty racist. You shouldn't have to say that to a person of color or whatever. I mean, the way your tone and the way you actually talk to the person really it would kind of guide how the conversation or like the argument actually goes. I mean, I wouldn't just stand up and be like arguing with an older person or even someone in their own house. I mean, it's your house, it's yours, and I have to respect that. But at the same time, I'm this kind of person who will always make sure that I actually have like my opinion is out there. Because I mean, if I'm not saying anything, then I'm really not helping matters, because like it's like I'm running away from the problem, and it's really not doing anything. I don't know, that's what it is for me. But like as Alona said, that is true. I especially was raised we have talked about how like in Nigeria it's like we really built on like respect for older people. So I wouldn't agree, but I definitely would be like, oh, you're definitely wrong for this, you shouldn't be saying this, that's very racist of you or something like that. I would look for a way to like, you know, diffuse the bomb and kind of put it out in like a very non microaggressive way. But yeah.
And that critical thinking, I just thought about it. Living where I live, things can escalate so quickly that I often just become submissive to the problem, because I'm like, okay, I know if I do this or if I do that, I know it's going to come out this way and not that way. Because, you know, like I said, people out here carry, and, you know, some people like to see where you stay. It can, like I said, safety is a huge thing. So that's why I'd rather just like, especially if you're sleeping in that person's house, I don't want to go to sleep, you know, thinking like, okay, so I feel like that's just why. But I think that's amazing that like you're confident enough to just be like, hey, you know, this isn't wrong and this is right. Because I'm being so honest, I would just change the subject. Like, like my anxiety.
So I've got a couple thoughts. First of all, one of you said that just like being a person of color, you kind of have to like pick and choose your battles. And so I guess because when I heard this question, my only thought was like, well, I mean, read the room. Obviously, like if they seem like the kind of people to have an argumentative discussion rather than just a passionate one, then maybe not. And so for me, it was kind of just like, okay, whatever, like I can talk about things and there's like not as much consequence for me or for Jill, just because we're not like, I mean, we're not people of color. And so there's like an obvious privilege that comes with, like, I don't know, like I am Asian, but I'm visibly white. And so like, there's just an obvious, I don't know, there's an immediate like prejudice that people can often have against y'all that they just don't have against me. And that obviously like kind of changes like our answers to this question, I guess, because I wouldn't have thought twice before like having a discussion with a parent about an issue.
Yeah, I think like the big difference for me is that like if I'm in a house with like a parent who's racist or bigoted in some way, I'm not in danger. So but I do think that like there's kind of a way like that you can like approach kind of difficult like potential arguments with like a little bit of tact. Like I feel like without even like engaging, like everyone in the world is like such a people pleaser that I feel like even if you just like, if they say, the parent says something and then you, even if you don't say anything like with body language or like show like a little bit of like discomfort or disgust or something, then maybe that will just like kind of unsettle them a little bit, even if you're not like fighting them verbally. Or maybe that's just like my own like insecurity, feeling like I pick up on that stuff and no one else does. But yeah, I don't know. That's how, if I like didn't feel like I could respond without like really messing things up somehow, that's probably what I would do.
Has anyone ever had that, inviting a friend over to their house and then your parents saying something that you felt like could be interpreted in not a way that you would like for them to interpret it? Does that question make sense? Have you ever yeah, Rachel, go ahead.
Oh, okay. So I have very conservative parents. My parents are incredibly conservative, and a lot of my friends like me are just aren't. And one of them, bless her heart, I don't know how to say this. She doesn't approach topics passionately, she approaches them angrily. And so my parents had just like in passing mentioned something about some gun law or whatever, just whatever it was. And she just like immediately got fired up. And because of the way that she responded to the way that, I don't know, because my parents are very much discussion kind of people. Like my parents and I obviously disagree politically, but there's no real issue with it. Like they're not mad at me for it, and I'm not mad at them for it either. And like they're very much discussion kind of people. However, my friend was not. And so she immediately got fired up, and they were just like, okay, well, I don't understand why you're responding to a conversation that we weren't having directed at you in our house. I don't know, because she just was very angry very quickly. So I don't know, it really does just come down to like the way that you respond to things and the way that you approach things. If you approach things like, I don't know, people can always tell when you're inquiring to like know more rather than when you're inquiring to start an angry argument. So I don't know. Yeah, read the room and pick your battles and decide how you want to approach things, I guess, is the takeaway.
Do you all think after you've had a disagreement with someone or someone has said something offensive, for example, someone you meet on the exchange or one of your friends through AEP, do you think that you can salvage that relationship? Like, can you still be friends? Can you work past it? Or are there times when you couldn't?
Most definitely. So, Rachel and Jillian, I'm not sure if y'all familiar, but there's a guy named Sam Buchner who's a part of American Exchange Project. And when I first joined 2 years ago, he got on the call. And like I said, the call was about the Confederate flag. And he immediately, like you said, how your friend approaches angrily, Rachel, he immediately came at me. How can you be Black and, you know, be okay with the Confederate flag? Like, just went off, like, just spazzed on me. So me, I'm like, I returned the same energy, because at the time I wasn't used to just somebody just coming at me with such an opposite view, you know. And this also happened on a FaceTime later. It wasn't on a call, but like we FaceTimed after, and the subject was brought up again, and he just yelled at me, and we were just going back and forth at each other, and it was just like, you know, we were just really, it was pretty bad. You know, we're going jab for jab. We were in a knockout ring. So after that, I had made up. I was like, you know, I don't like this guy. Like, he's not up for a discussion. And I think later we were on another call, and it was about abortion, and he had agreed with me on a point, and I was like kind of surprised, because it's like, okay, like you're being like nice to me, but literally a few days ago you were doing this and that. And I told Mr. McCullough about it, and he told me how Sam was. You know, I think Sam's on a debate team or something like that. So he's like, you know, where Sam lives, this is how stuff goes down. I said, okay, where I live, everybody believes what I believe. So, you know, later on, like, me and Sam had a convo with each other, and, you know, we just kind of talked about how we were both wrong in the situation. He apologized for coming at me how he did and not having discussion, and I apologized for not trying to de-escalate and completely telling him he's wrong for what he believes. Because at the end of the day, you can't change perception. Everybody has a correct perception. So now me and Sam Buchner are very good friends. We text every now and then. I just texted him the other day because we had to write something for AEP, but we definitely salvaged a relationship, and it's just a maturity thing. You know, you both have to be willing to salvage a relationship. If you hurt that person that bad and they don't want to, okay, you know, you can't do nothing about that, but you can move on and you can learn from the situation. Luckily, me and Sam, you know, I kind of realized, okay, you know, this dude, he's very smart. I can learn a lot from him. And I noticed what he did is just what he was surrounded with. It wasn't anything personal, you know? So it's just understanding, like we said, like a choice to understand. And when you both want to salvage the relationship, it can be salvaged.
Mm-hmm.
Any other thoughts on that?
I mean, it depends if it was like there's a kind of a very clear difference between like a political thing and like a human rights thing. And I feel like there's like a kind of a perceived gray area that I don't necessarily think is there. So I think the content of what they're saying does matter. Like if they say something that's like offensive that's stated as a political view, that kind of just reflects badly on them as a person to me. And I even differing like political views, I feel like I'm my like current like friend atmosphere and just the whole kind of nature of the people I associate myself with, we kind of like a while ago touched on like how you're kind of just like a mashup of all the people that you spend the most time with. Is I really like to have like political discussions with my friends, but mostly I agree with most of my friends. So it's more like kind of just like a group commiseration. And that's like kind of one of like my love language with a couple of my friends is just like dragging capitalism. And I think so. I don't know like if I like made a friend that like wasn't having that, if it would like progress as far as some of my close friendships.
Interesting.
But maybe I've never, you know, just very kind of homogenous like political ideologies in the people that I associate with.
Well, maybe that won't be the case after this summer, Jillian.
To be honest, mine doesn't go the same way, because I feel like everyone that I have like had like, I mean, I've had like a pretty good amount of like arguments with so many people, but I live for it. But none of them actually turn out to be like a friendship that I can be like, oh, this person's like a friend. I mean, I guess we could call each other acquaintances, but they're either blocked and like, I guess not friends or acquaintances. It never like goes past that. I feel like also it kind of depends on the type of like arguments we have. If during the argument the person has said like a lot of like pretty problematic stuff, and like even after like we try to resolve it, the person still stands by the problematic stuff they say. I mean, the thing is that for a friendship to be a friendship, you kind of have to like have some sort of agreement, or something in common and stuff like that. So if there isn't that, then there is no need to actually have like it's just gonna turn into like a toxic kind of relationship. I mean, I did have this like one friend that I guess like we had like very different views, but we're somewhat similar in how we kind of love to argue. So like sometimes we just like argue over like literally nothing, like things that aren't that serious. And I mean, I found out, I was like, oh, that's fun, that's fine. But I mean, over the past few, I guess, months that we were talking or whatever, there are times where I'm like, and the person like, there are times where like someone be like, oh, they have a problem with this person, and I won't be able to like, stand up for them, but like, oh, well, this is what happens or this thing, because I know that the person even did that same thing to me, and I just because someone else couldn't stand for themselves didn't mean that I couldn't stand for myself. So I was just arguing, and like it didn't really do anything. So I'm like, why am I wasting my time and like my energy and things like that? So honestly, I feel like it just kind of depends on the type of like argument it is, and like how like the person's views to. Because like if you have different views, it's gonna be really hard to actually have a friend that has like very opposing views to yours.
I think for me, it kind of comes down to like, I don't know, politics have become a lot more vital than just like, okay, like for example, if someone like whether it's like trans or LGBTQ plus rights, like it can come down to like, oh, do you think that this human being deserves rights or not? And I just, there's like, I don't know how to really explain this. Like if someone, I would like to be able to say that if someone has differing political views than me, then I can still be friends with them. And obviously, like, I'm not going to just completely cut somebody out of my life for disagreeing with me. However, I just, it makes me doubt your humanity when you think that certain people don't have rights. And so there's going to be a separation there. And that's kind of just inevitable.
I feel when it comes, because I have some family members who like think that way, and like me, I can't, family's family. You're gonna be around them, like when you get older, you can choose not to, but it's like, this person raised me, so I'm not. But I feel like with me, if like for instance at school, I almost always avoided, unless it was with somebody who had like a likes, like a similar like ideology or like a similar, I always avoided political conversations because it can get there. Like I told y'all, like there's plenty of people that I grew up with who fly Trump flags and stuff, and it's like I'm not gonna bring that up because it can escalate and cause so many problems. So I think like when we said like acquaintances and associates is possible, but like as for you being my best friend or like me possibly like having a relationship with you, it would not work. But then again, I feel like if it is an acquaintance, you can choose not to bring up politics because not everything is about politics. There's a lot more other stuff you can talk about.
Alana, would you say the same thing when it comes to religion? Or do you think that there's a distinct difference between someone having different political beliefs and different religious beliefs that makes one friendship more possible than the other?
Yes, because like personally, like okay, if I meet somebody and they're a cool person and like 2 months in our friendship, they're just like, oh yeah, like if I invite them to church and like, oh well, I go to a mosque, like I'm Muslim or like I'm Jewish, like I'm not gonna be like, okay, we can't be friends. Because one, that goes against my religion, because the Bible says to love all, love thy neighbor. And then again, moral, treat everybody how you want to be treated. So I don't think discriminating based on religion or politics is basically fair. But I think, like I said, being in a close relationship, like if you were to be my boyfriend or if you were to be like my best friend, it would differ, just like the politics. But as for acquaintances, no.
Mhm.
I guess I can add into that. I feel like for religion, it is kind of different because religion is all about, morality and like, being good, or, have like, I guess like having like there is a higher, power that is watching us and like, wants us to be better and stuff like that. I feel like religion is different because I mean I can definitely be close friends with a Muslim. Like I do have like a lot of friends that actually a different religion than mine. Um because like ultimately we do kind of have like trying to somewhat reach the same goal, which is like, being overall being like better people, I guess. For like Muslims, for example, I mean, they believe that like, we have to like, be good people, do good on the earth, whatever. But Christians still believe that, well, God is judging whatever you do. We should like Alana said, we should love each other. We shouldn't be judgmental and stuff like that. And like we should, and like, we have the whole 10 commandments, which literally prevents us from being evil people, um I feel like for religion, it's just very different than politics itself, because religion is basically making you a better person. But like for politics is something that, it's, how do I even explain it? Honestly, politics is not something that like, be like, oh well, you have to live by this certain rule because you're a Democrat, you're a Democrat, or you have to live by this certain rule because you're a Republican. I mean, yeah, it's just somewhat different.
So, okay, for me, I actually, now that I think about it, I have multiple times cut off relationships like based on religion rather than because politics, I don't think that there's ever been a time when I have been like, okay, I can't be friends with you because you have different beliefs than me. I don't know. Obviously, again, if you think that certain human beings don't deserve rights, then I just don't understand you. But yeah, anyway, but within the church, so for me as a Christian, there have been other Christians who like have just, I don't know, if you take the Bible and twist it, or if you use, I don't know, your religion as an excuse to hate people, then as a Christian, you reflect badly on me, and that makes me really angry at you. And so that is kind of the way that I take that. I don't know where I'm going with this.
I feel like it's kind of weird that like in this country, like there's a fair amount of like religious beliefs that are also kind of coded as political beliefs, or like political beliefs that extend into the like area of politics, even if it really is just like kind of a human rights thing. Like but as someone who's like not religious, I don't like, if you, as long as you like it's not none of my business like what you believe, if it's not like, if you're not worried about other people's business, pretty much. Like kind of like Rachel was saying, like if you're like bigoted against like gay people, or you're like think that like there's some like kind of like other thing where you're trying to like impose your religion on other people. But I feel like most like religious people aren't like that. So like, why would I care?
Yeah, that's like another thing, like when it comes to religion, it's different from politics, because religion, you're kind of like raised on it. Like I said, saying grace before you eat, that's being taught, or like the Lord's Prayer, like that's being taught as a child. It's being implemented in your brain. I don't want to say conditioned because it has negative connotation, but you're basically being conditioned within your religion. So, and that's for most religions, not even just Christianity. So like if you choose to not be religious, that's fine. If you are religious, that's fine. As long as you're not handing me like a Quran and being like, you need to read this or else I'm gonna kill you, I'm all right. Like it doesn't matter. It's none of my business. I'm gonna treat everybody how I would want to be treated. And yeah, because I have a best friend, like my best friend, literally, she well, I guess this kind of contradicts what I said, but she also, like, she just believes that there's a higher power. She doesn't really believe in God, but she believes in like the universe and like horoscopes and stuff like that. And you know, I still, me being like a mom to her, I'll be like, girl, I'm gonna pray for you, but like it doesn't offend her because she knows, like, you know, like I don't ever slap a Bible and I'm like, you better memorize John 3:16. Like, no, like it's you know. And then she grew up in the South, so it's surrounded by her, like she's surrounded by it anyway. But like, yeah, I think, you know, it's same with politics. Like just imposing beliefs on somebody is just wrong, period. Whether it's religion or politics, just wrong. The way religion is being the way it's being controlled by politicians is wrong also. Like the way people are regarding religion now, like people of higher power, it's pretty bad. But yeah.
You and Jill both kind of mentioned how, like, I don't know, people have related politics and religion. And obviously a lot, like for me, a lot of my beliefs, a lot of my political beliefs come from just my religious beliefs. But like, I don't know, like being Christian, being associated with being conservative, and that just those two people thinking that those two things equate, like that is something that will always frustrate me. And like something that was like just so frustrating about just Donald Trump and his entire presidency was that Christians were like just really idolizing Trump, which is exactly what you're not supposed to do because you're not supposed to have idols. And that, I don't know, it was just so contradictory and so frustrating. Yeah.
Or how yeah, I do this is one thing. See, this is why I don't talk about politics, because the minute somebody comes to her, I remember on Snapchat they had this girl, and this mother had put this girl in her shirt, and it was like all gays go to hell or something like that. I was like, you do realize that the Bible said thou shalt not judge, for thee be judged by themselves, which means that like if you judge somebody, you will be judged upon that same judgment. I remember I seen literally on TikTok like yesterday, it was this pastor, and he was saying, if you have not lied in your whole entire life, you have no right to condemn anybody on any other religion. That's in the Bible itself. So yeah, no, it's a lot of contradicting, you know, and then it adds to that stereotype of like Southern Christian, you know, like hating the LGBTQ, literally just going against what the Bible says. So yeah, it frustrates me as well. I feel like no religion should be accompanied with a political view, because a political view is made by man, and Christianity is, you know, you're a follower of Christ. So
Well, in about 23 days, exactly 23 days, some of you are going to be getting on a plane and then potentially going to church or to another religious celebration for the first time. So that'll be one of many of the interesting cultural experiences that you're going to have on this trip, and for us too. So do any of you have any final thoughts that this conversation has left you with, you know, 23 days out from this exchange, the types of interesting conversations, debates that you'll find yourselves in while you're traveling? How's everyone feeling?
I'm extremely excited. I cannot wait to go up north and see everybody. I can't wait to meet Wumi when she comes down here. Can't wait to meet Jillian, hopefully see her chickens. You know, for me, I feel bad because it's like if like everybody else has brought up like political aspects, like, oh, you know, I'm gonna go up and I'm like, bruh, give me some clam chowder. Like I'm so excited. But yeah, like I'm happy. It'll be my first time on a plane, so it's gonna be a lot of firsts for me. So yeah, I'm very excited. I'm excited to come show y'all where I'm from, you know, give y'all a bit of a part of me, like Rachel had said, you know, putting all the puzzle pieces together for me, Ben, and Raylan and Jordan. So I'm excited about that.
Awesome.
I don't know, I'm obsessed with my hometown, and so I'm just like I'm so excited to share that with people. And then just like I'm meeting like a bunch of strangers, and like I am so excited to like make these people not strangers anymore, and then like make them not strangers to my hometown, because again, I'm obsessed with it. And so I don't know, I'm excited. That's all.
Thanks, Rachel.
No, because like same. I am really excited to meet like a lot of people, and it's so crazy because like I mean, since like I really haven't been out of like California, I guess, since I came here. I have been within California, but just not out of California. So it would be like a really great experience. But also like I am like so pumped to actually meet people. That like honestly, I feel like that's like my number one. Like like that's like literally number one on my list for making me excited for like the exchange, having to actually, put the faces and like, I guess like the whole appearance together. But also like I feel like actually having to like, see them and like, look at like a day in the life of Alana or like a day in life of Jordan or like a day in life of Ben or something like that. Honestly, it's very exciting. But yeah.
I'm honestly very nervous. I'm excited for all the stuff we have to do, but look, dude, the idea of just like meeting like a whole bunch of new people and having to like figure out group dynamics in a week, and like it's nerve-wracking, but it's something that like I feel like I like have to do. Like I feel like there was no way that I could turn down an experience like this, especially because like it was free, which is like the coolest thing I've ever like. That's wild. And I've never been to Louisiana, so I'm there's lots of emotions. Yeah, a little scared, but quite excited and not regretting anything.
I hope it stays that way, Jillian. Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for joining us this evening. I'm sure that we'll get this recording out to our family, and over the next few weeks we'll be checking in again in our travel groups before the exchange. But this is happening in 23 days, so really, really excited to be traveling with all of you. Yeah. All right. Thank you all.
Thanks, Olivia.
Bye.
Talk to y'all soon.
Bye.
Bye.